Hello everyone, welcome to DT Hardware. It's been a while since the last time I uploaded a video, but this time I hope to do better and upload more frequently. With that said, let's get to the benchmarks. Today I'm revisiting the RX580 and Ryzen 5 1400 stock performance, as I did in the first video on the channel last year. Some of the games tested changed. I dropped older games and added newer ones like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Valorant, Metro Exodus and Far Cry New Dawn. Let's start with some synthetics benchmark. First, Cinebench R20. The CPU got a result of 303 points for single core and 1541 points for multi-core performance. Then I tested two of the 3D Mark benchmarks. The first one is Firestrike, which is a DirectX 11 benchmark in which the score was 10,913. Then I tested 3D Mark Timesfire, which is a DirectX 12 benchmark. The score here was 4,129. Now let's talk about actual gaming performance. The first game that I tested was CSGO on a bot match on the map Mirage. The results were 145 frames per second for the average. The maximum was 553. Just a note here, I won't show anymore this metric in future videos because it doesn't give any actual representation of performance, so just ignore it. For the 1%, which represent the smoothness of the gameplay, we have a result of 78, which means the gameplay was pretty smooth. Now let's take a look at the frame times graph, which represent time interval within frames. As you can see, there's a couple of big spikes, but for the most part the framerate delivery was pretty good, except for more frequent but lower spikes. This can easily be fixed by lowering quality. This is a higher quality preset than what most people will play at, so just lowering the quality will, as I said, smooth the gameplay out a bit. Next, Far Cry New Dawn. I tested this one with the integrated benchmark, as I have not played the game yet. Here gaming performance was pretty much on point with what most people will play at, average of 60 FPS with a pretty good 1% percentile of 45 FPS, representing a pretty smooth gaming experience. Let's take a look at the frame times graph. As you can see, it's a pretty strong frame time performance, with just some small 10 to 20 millisecond spikes. The next game is GTA 5, which had similar result to what we just saw in Far Cry. Average of 65 FPS and 1% low of 48. You can expect lower performance when playing online, around a 10 to 15% hit. Just thought this might be helpful to someone looking into this at this point in time, considering the online is still pretty popular. Let's take a quick look at the frame times, and as you can see, and as I said, it's pretty smooth. Next, Metro Exodus. One of the new entries and a game I've been looking forward to play the most. I was having pretty poor performance in this game before watching the excellent video made by Hardware Unboxed that talked about video settings for this game. This was due to tessellation being on. As you can see, the framerate is pretty ideal at high settings now that I have turned it off. Nothing bad to spot here in the framerate graph too, so let's go on. Rocket League, another esport title, pretty easy to run. The performance is pretty good with 159 FPS average and 89 FPS 1%. Let's take a look at the frame times. Here you can see there are some nasty spikes. These are a little misleading. In fact, when you score in this game you can expect lag spikes like this, but during the actual gameplay it's totally smooth, as you can see from the in-between spikes parts of the graph. The next game is Sekiro, one of my favorite games that I played last year. Here the game was pretty much locked to 60 FPS all the time, ignore the maximum metric. Here I've been having some trouble in recorded frame times. The other metrics are accurate. I also tested it with another software that reported the same problem. The only game where I noticed this problem is Sekiro. Frame times graph confirms the nice performance you can get on this title with specs like this. And as you can see, going back to the issue I was mentioning before, there's just a couple of instances where the software recorded lower frame times than what is actually possible in this game, considering, as I said, it is locked to 60 FPS. The next game is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is another one of the new entries. I haven't played it yet, so I used the integrated benchmark that uses different scenes, so it should give a pretty accurate picture of different places in the game. The average was 70 FPS and the 1% low was 47, so once again pretty smooth gameplay. Frame times are also pretty decent. The spikes that you can see here were recorded during the next scene loading. For the actual scene, the frame times were smooth and no stutter at all. Valorant has been pretty popular since its launch, and I've been enjoying playing it lately, even though I don't really like its malware-like anti-cheat system that starts with your PC doing God knows what. Anyhow, the benchmark here was captured in Ascent, in a local match where I went around the map, and the frame rate, as you can see, with competitive video settings, was really high and stutter-free, with a 235 FPS average and 152 FPS 1% low. The frame time performance is also flawless. So that's all everyone. As you can see, the RX580 and the Ryzen 5 1400 are still pretty capable of playing games. The next video will probably be about the overclocked performance of these components. Hope you enjoyed, subscribe and like the video. If you want to ask me anything, leave a comment. I'll try not to keep you waiting too long this time for the next video. With that said, I hope you have a nice day.